So it seems like it's official. Nvidia's RTX 4000 is finally in production, and we've even heard from Nvidia's CEO himself about what's going on with the inventory right now of RTX 3000, as well as maybe when to expect RTX 4000. So Nvidia has been giving their guidance and their sort of updates on their financials now, and they even did a preview of it recently where the numbers really weren't that great. Sales dropped a considerable amount. And the Nvidia CEO recently now, he even said that their main issue is clearing up inventory of RTX 3000. He also mentions how popular RTX 3000 is. And of course, in previous, little sales memos that he's given, he said that gamers on average paid a considerable amount more for RTX 3000 compared to last generation. Of course, that's something that sounds good for an investor, but it doesn't sound too good for a gamer because that just means you paid a lot more for your GPU than you would have last generation. So even though they're kind of boasting about us spending more money on their GPUs, at the end of the day, it's good for investors, but it's not so good for gamers. We're, after all, just spending more money. Now, he definitely mentions the inventory problems, how they have to clear all of the selling problems that they have right now. There's just a huge amount of RTX 3000 GPUs out, and from what we've seen, RTX 4000, primarily the 4090, seems to have started production. That means it's already on its way to having everything needed for it to be sold. Most likely, we would expect it probably in October, which is definitely a month and something away. So Nvidia will probably announce it within the next month and a half, I would say, and we could see it in people's hands as early as maybe 2 months from now if everything pans out. So that's really a telling sign. It started production. At the same time, you have this pretty significant issue of the inventory, and that's something that even Jason Huang from Nvidia has said definitely is a problem. And you could just look at the sales numbers. You don't even have to speculate on what's going on in the market. According to Nvidia, they call it macroeconomic problems. I mean, they don't specifically say, oh, listen, Ethereum is about to merge and crypto miners are no longer buying GPUs, so there's a massive glut of them available on the market. He doesn't come out and just say that, or of course nor does Nvidia, but we know that's definitely a substantial issue. But of course, a lot of gamers did buy RTX 3000. After all, performance, let's analyze the GPUs separate from all of the pricing issues and availability problems that we saw. Definitely, they're great GPUs. I mean, a 3080, even the 3090, overpriced as it may be, is definitely a great performer. If you're playing at 4K, you definitely need one of these high-end GPUs. That's not the problem. The problem was really the pricing, availability, and eventually the really bad sort of taking advantage of the consumer in both retail with overpriced GPUs, as well as on the secondhand scalper market. We saw a lot of that going on. Of course, that's not necessarily Nvidia or AMD's fault, but definitely in the retail channels, they bumped up those prices a significant amount from all of the third-party AIBs during the last 2 years. So if you read into what the Nvidia CEO said, of course, he mentions that an exciting next generation is coming out this year. Of course, that's going to be starting most likely with the RTX 4090, and then he puts forth the two major problems. And this is something that's actually very good for you to know if you're at all in the GPU market, and if you guys like watching the channel here, pretty much all I talk about is GPUs and gaming computers. So, of course, as we've touched on, he also mentions the inventory problems. But to go even further into that, he mentions the corrective steps that they need to take with their partners to fix these inventory problems. Let me translate what that means. Most likely, well, actually extremely fully likely, however you want to say it, that means that they need to discount GPUs for their partners, give them rebates, whatever it may be. They have various ways and various, financial means to make good with their retail partners like EVGA and Asus, in order for them to be able to sell these GPU cheaper. For example, we know that something like an EVGA 3090 Ti most likely doesn't have that big of a margin. We've known from, stories in the past that GPUs are pretty tight margins. Now, it goes without saying we did have a lot of scalpers and even retailers over, pricing their GPUs, but but something like a 3090 Ti, if it retailed initially for $1999, let's say the EVGA for the Win 3, most likely EVGA had a very small percentage in terms of the markup and their profit. Now, recently we did see that EVGA had a massive price slashing of that GPU, literally almost $1,000 off. It was down to $1,149. Now, does that mean that EVGA had almost $1,000 of room within that GPU? No, of course not. Not at all. That'd be, pretty ridiculous. And if they were making that much profit on each GPU, I think the market entirely would be completely different. What really happens here is that, behind the scenes, Nvidia gives them some type of a rebate. That can come in many fashions. Maybe, who knows, maybe it's allocation of RTX 4000 with discounts. Maybe it's cash back on what they have now. There's all this different levels of the supply chain that are going on. They have GPUs that are being produced, GPUs that are probably in their warehouse, GPUs already at retailers. There are various levels here, so it's definitely, unless you're really in that industry and actually seeing what's going on in these specific examples, hard to tell exactly which one it is, but something definitely happens where they give them, let's call it some type of rebate, where EVGA is now having to pay less to Nvidia for that GPU, so they pass that savings on to the consumer. I mean, what's the reason to do this? To be able to sell that GPU, because they cannot sell it at the MSRP price. Nvidia realizes that a $2,000 3090 Ti is not going anywhere. At $1,149, it does seem like they sold a decent amount, where then the price jumped back up to like $1,399 or something like that. And I'm sure EVGA or whatever company, I'm just using them as an example, may then agree with Nvidia, all right, we can see it that we can sell it at this price. They probably keep their margins very close to what they were before, and then they adjust it so that they can continue to sell them without too much of a financial issue, at least on the third-party AIB side. Because after all, if we view somebody like Nvidia as the parent and larger company, and then EVGA or one of the third-party partners as sort of the smaller company, they both depend on each other, so it makes sense for Nvidia to protect EVGA in terms of their financial interest when the market doesn't go too well, because when the market is going really well, of course Nvidia is profiting left and right from GPU sales through companies like EVGA and Asus and MSI. All of those partners are certainly important, so when it comes time to fix some issues in the market so they don't take that much of a beating financially, Nvidia kind of has to step in, and it seems like they do, in order to give some rebates and make these GPUs actually sell. Because here, the only other alternative, if they didn't do this, either EVGA would take a massive loss on all the GPUs that they sell, which would be terrible for the company and perhaps affect their ability to do business in the future, which would be bad for Nvidia, because then RTX 4000 and things like that would have a lot more trouble getting off the ground. Or they just keep them at the price that they are and they don't sell them at all, and that inventory continues to depreciate and just pile up, and then when a new release comes out, the pricing will be slashed even further, and it's just a terrible backed up situation. So that's what they're doing now. I guess Nvidia is doing different strategies to alleviate some of those pricing pressures. They have to do that before RTX 4000 comes out, and that's very, very soon. And what does that mean for you, the consumer? First, RTX 3000 most likely will still get another big price cut. I think we've seen some price cuts so far on the more entry-level GPUs and mid-range, like 3070s, 3080 and below. We haven't seen that many discounts. The 3080s are closer to MSRP, but like the 3090 Ti, you see it's like $1,000 off its original MSRP in some cases. So we haven't seen that movement in the lower end GPUs. Maybe we will as Nvidia gets closer to the release of RTX 4000. That's something we have to keep an eye out for, and that's probably going to be a huge motivator for the market. If the GPUs are really cheap, then people may decide to buy them, but as of right now, I still say don't buy anything at all. Huge changes are definitely going to be coming in the way of a new release in RTX 4000. Even if it's just a 4090, it's going to depreciate all of the RTX 3000 GPUs anyway, and then the RTX 3000 GPUs are going to have a massive price decrease, but whatever rebates Nvidia may give their partners to clear that inventory channel, just like the CEO said in their recent financial statements and things like that. So very interesting to see the next couple of months. We can expect much cheaper GPU prices, huge availability, and RTX 4000 with probably still a high MSRP if I were to guess, and they may either paper launch it or not launch a huge amount in order to flood the market that's already going to be dealing with this inventory clearing issue of the past generation GPUs. So it may actually end up being a little difficult to get RTX 4000, at least the one that you want, not because of huge demand, but because they may have to control the amount that they release out into the wild just until they can clear these inventory issues. Anyway, that's my guess, but things can change considerably. Let me know what you guys think down below, what may happen. Remember to subscribe, smash that like button, and I'll see you guys on the next video.